All right, let's just jump right into this because there's this wild but super revealing hypothetical scenario that just blew up all over the internet recently.
So you see this picture here? It's totally fake, AI generated. But the post that went viral with it made a very real point. See, the whole justification for grabbing a guy like Maduro, things like drug trafficking or supporting terrorism, well, you could slap that same label on North Korea's leader pretty easily, right? And that just begs the question, doesn't it? I mean, with the sheer power of the U.S. military, what's really stopping them from making this fictional scene a reality in Pyongyang? The answer? Well, it's not simple. It's actually this fascinating story of diplomacy gone wrong, very real threats, in a desperate, all-out race for the ultimate weapon.
So to really get how we ended up here, and believe me, why North Korea is such a unique case, we've got to go back in time. Back to this major fork in the road in the relationship between the U.S. and North Korea.
Okay, so picture this. It's the late 90s, early 2000s. Under President Clinton, the whole game plan was engagement, actually talking to them. And you know what? It led to some huge breakthroughs, like this agreed framework, where North Korea actually froze its plutonium program. In return, they got aid and, better relations. It was this moment of, unprecedented openness.
But yeah, that whole policy of talking things out, it hit a brick wall, and fast, with the next administration. In 2002, President George W. Bush gives his now famous Axis of Evil speech. He lumps North Korea right in there with Iran and Iraq, and bam, that's the signal for a complete 180 on U.S. policy.
And look, the shift wasn't subtle. It was immediate. It was absolute. The U.S. went from this strategy of careful, diplomatic chess to just open hostility. The goal was no longer about talking. It was about isolating and squeezing Pyongyang. And that decision? Well, it was going to have some massive, massive consequences. This brand new, aggressive posture from the U.S., you combine that with a huge world event that happened just a year later, and suddenly you've lit an absolute fire under North Korea's nuclear ambitions.
That event? March 2003, the United States invades Iraq, another member of that Axis of Evil. And for Pyongyang, this wasn't just news from a faraway country. It was a chilling message sent directly to them.
I mean, think about it from their perspective. North Korea saw exactly what happens to a regime that gets on the wrong side of the U.S. but doesn't have a nuclear deterrent. They looked at Iraq and came to a really stark, really simple conclusion. We are next unless we get the ultimate insurance policy. The time for just talking and waiting, that was completely over.
And their reaction wasn't just, some angry press release. No way. It was immediate. It was decisive. They took steps they could never walk back from. They fired up their main nuclear reactor again. They literally kicked out the international inspectors, and they started processing plutonium for weapons. They had officially crossed the point of no return. So while the U.S. was bogged down for years and years in the Middle East, what was North Korea doing? They were in an all-out sprint, not just to build a bomb, but to figure out a way to deliver it. And then, in 2017, they crossed the finish line. And get this, on July 4th, 2017, yeah, the 4th of July, of all days, North Korea tests this thing, the Hwasong-14. And this wasn't just another missile test. This was the big one, an intercontinental ballistic missile, an ICBM, with a crazy estimated range of over 10,000 kilometers. This is huge, because what this represents is a fundamental tectonic shift in the global balance of power. For the very first time in history, this small, super isolated country could credibly threaten the United States mainland. Suddenly, the ability to strike back wasn't just a one-way street anymore.
And this headline, it says it all, right? The game is over and North Korea has won. This came out right after U.S. intelligence confirmed that, yep, North Korea had figured out how to make a warhead small enough to stick on top of one of those missiles. This perfectly captured the brand new reality. The entire strategic game had been changed forever.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. Let's see how all these pieces, the diplomacy, the threats, the missile tests, how it all builds up to answer that very first question we asked. Could the U.S. actually kidnap Kim Jong-un?
And the answer is a hard, definitive no. And it's for three really crucial reasons that make North Korea a completely different beast from, say, Venezuela, or Iraq, or Libya. 1, they've got the weapons. 2, they are notoriously, almost impossibly hard to infiltrate. And 3, they have a clear-as-day plan to use those weapons, even if their leader gets taken out of the picture.
But here's the part that's just staggering, how cheaply they managed to buy this security.
They essentially checkmated the world's most powerful military, a military with a budget approaching $1 trillion, and they did it for a total cost that's about the same as a single advanced U.S. submarine. That's just wild.
What you're seeing here is a textbook case of something experts call asymmetric deterrence. It's the ultimate David versus Goliath playbook, a weaker power using one disproportionately powerful weapon to hold a much stronger one at bay. And you could argue that North Korea basically wrote the modern manual on how to pull it off.
But look, this story, the story of North Korea's nukes, it isn't just about one isolated country. It's actually a really powerful and kind of dangerous lesson for the entire world.
So from Pyongyang's point of view, that fake picture of Maduro being captured, that's not a shock. It's just the latest piece of evidence confirming a lesson they learned a long, long time ago by watching what happened to leaders in Iraq and Libya. For them, giving up their weapons isn't a negotiation tactic. It would be, in their eyes, literal suicide. And this is why the whole idea of them voluntarily giving up their nukes, which remember was a real possibility way back in the Clinton years, is now, well, it's pretty much a fantasy. Every time the U.S. takes action against a non-nuclear state, it just reinforces to them that they made the right call.
And that kind of leaves us with this final, pretty sobering thought. North Korea's success, a success that was born out of fear and hostility, has created a blueprint for how a small nation can survive against a superpower. And it leaves the rest of the world asking a very uncomfortable question. Who's going to be the next one to follow it?